This is a Nimitz-Class nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, currently the most numerous and widely deployed aircraft carrier in the world, as well as a symbol of the U.S. Navy's deterrent power. The first Nimitz-class ship began construction in 1968, spanning over 35 years, with the last one starting construction in 2003. During this period, a total of 10 Nimitz-class carriers were built, making it the most numerous class of aircraft carriers built by the U.S. Navy after World War II. Currently, all 10 ships are in active service. As the backbone of the U.S. Navy, the Nimitz class has a full load displacement of around 100,000 tons and can accommodate up to 130 F-18 jets, or 85 to 90 different types of aircraft, although the usual capacity is about 65 aircraft. The standard configuration includes 4 fighter squadrons, each with 10 to 12 aircraft, which can mix F-35C and Super Hornets. However, only 3 Nimitz-class carriers have been modified to carry F-35C aircraft, while the remaining 7 cannot. In addition to fighters, other typical aircraft include 6 EA-6B Prowler electronic warfare aircraft, 4 E-2 Hawkeye early warning aircraft, 8 MH-60 Seahawk helicopters, and 2 C-2 Greyhound transport aircraft. In terms of sortie efficiency, the Nimitz class's highest record is 771 sorties in 4 days, averaging 193 sorties per day, which is equivalent to the Air Force of some medium-sized countries. Over the past 50 years, the Nimitz class has truly been the maritime hegemon, with its presence felt all over the globe. Wherever there is even the slightest disturbance, the Nimitz class will rush to the scene. But as the flagship of the U.S. Navy and the representative of nuclear-powered aircraft carriers, what kind of aircraft carrier is the Nimitz class exactly? Welcome to Chris's military base, where we focus on the military equipment of various countries. Today, we'll talk about the United States Navy's Nimitz-class aircraft carriers. In 1961, after the U.S. Navy's first nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, the Enterprise, was commissioned, the cost was so high, almost twice that of the previous Kitty Hawk class, that the U.S. Navy was reluctant to build more. Additionally, then Secretary of Defense Robert McNamara opposed nuclear-powered aircraft carriers, emphasizing the importance of cost-effectiveness. He argued that compared to conventional powered carriers of the same tonnage, nuclear-powered carriers did not provide a corresponding improvement in performance relative to their higher lifetime costs. As a result, after building just one Enterprise, the U.S. Navy began to build more Kitty Hawk-class carriers. Furthermore, McNamara questioned the necessity of maintaining a fleet of 15 aircraft carriers and planned to slow down the pace of new carrier orders. However, the question of whether nuclear-powered aircraft carriers were useful and how many were needed could not be settled with theory. Only real-world experience could provide the answer. Background music. In April 1964, the Enterprise embarked on a global voyage named Operation Sea Orbit, during which it traveled 49,100 kilometers without refueling and remained at sea for 65 days. This mission demonstrated the advantage of nuclear-powered aircraft carriers. They could be deployed anywhere in the world without worrying about fuel. A year later, on August 5, 1965, in response to the Gulf of Tonkin incident, the U.S. military launched its first airstrike against North Vietnam. 2 aircraft carriers deployed 66 aircraft to bomb military targets in North Vietnam. In the first 3 years of the conflict, half of the airstrikes on North Vietnam were carried out by U.S. aircraft carriers. This experience led the U.S. Department of Defense to realize the unparalleled endurance of nuclear-powered aircraft carriers. Additionally, they discovered that maintaining and protecting a ground airbase near North Vietnam was just as costly as using aircraft carriers, but ground bases could not be quickly redeployed like aircraft carriers. Therefore, McNamara revised his previous decision in 1966, allowing the U.S. Navy to keep 15 aircraft carriers and authorized the construction of 3 new nuclear-powered carriers starting in 1967. The design of these new carriers was influenced by the Vietnam War. It was clear that aircraft carriers needed to improve their offensive capabilities rather than their survivability. Unlike in World War II, modern aircraft carriers were well protected, and the likelihood of being struck was greatly reduced. Based on these lessons, the U.S. Navy began building its first supercarriers. These new carriers emphasized offensive capabilities and were designed to carry more aircraft than previous models. In honor of Chester W. Nimitz, the U.S. Pacific Fleet commander during World War II, who passed away in 1966, the first ship in the new class was named USS Nimitz. Following tradition, all subsequent ships of the same class are named Nimitz-Class. The first ship began construction in 1968, was launched in 1972, and commissioned in 1975. After that, the Navy maintained an average of one ship launched every 4 years. It is worth mentioning that before the fourth Nimitz-class ship, U.S. Navy carriers were built using traditional methods, which involved constructing the ship from the bottom up, similar to building a house. This method occupied dry docks for a long time, and the construction site was very crowded, with electricians, plumbers, and welders working in close quarters. Building a single aircraft carrier required 33 million labor hours. However, starting with the fourth ship, the construction method changed to modular construction, meaning that the ship's hull and pre-installed pipes and electrical equipment were welded together to improve efficiency. This allowed workers from different trades to work in shifts without interfering with each other. After everything was assembled, the sections were lifted into dry docks for welding, which greatly accelerated the building process, reducing the construction time from the previous average of 5 years to about 3 years. The fastest Nimitz-class ship, the USS Stennis, took only 2.5 years to complete, making it the second fastest nuclear-powered aircraft carrier built after the Enterprise. Now, let's talk about the specific design details of the Nimitz-class. The flight deck of the Nimitz-class is 330 meters long, 77.8 meters wide, and has an area of about 18,000 square meters. It can be divided into 4 main areas. The first area is for catapult launches. The second is for landing, equipped with an angled deck and arresting wires. The third is for parking aircraft, and the fourth is mainly used for maintenance operations. The island of the Nimitz class is located on the mid to aft section of the flight deck. The island has 6 levels, with the first 2 levels typically allocated to flight deck management personnel who oversee all operations on the flight deck. For better coordination, there is a scaled-down model of the flight deck with various miniature aircraft models and several small components to indicate the status of the aircraft. The Nimitz class also has 4 elevators, 3 on the right side of the flight deck and 1 at the end of the angled deck's catapult. Each elevator is a massive platform, measuring 370 square meters and weighing 86 tons. These elevators can transport up to 59 tons of cargo, equivalent to 2 fully loaded F-18 aircraft. The speed at which aircraft are moved is crucial, and the elevators move at 0.69 meters per second, allowing them to complete the transfer between the hangar and the flight deck in just 15 seconds. As a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, the Nimitz class can operate for 25 years without refueling. It is equipped with 2 A4W reactors, each providing 550 megawatts of power. These reactors generate steam, some of which is used to power the 4 catapults, while the rest is directed to turbines that generate electricity for the entire ship. The turbines also drive 4 large 5-blade propellers, providing over 260,000 horsepower. However, this power output is still lower than the 280,000 horsepower of the Enterprise. Additionally, the Nimitz class is slightly wider than the Enterprise, which increases drag, making the Nimitz class the slowest nuclear-powered aircraft carrier in the U.S. Navy, with a top speed of 30 to 31 knots. Regarding the catapults, the Nimitz class is equipped with 4 C-13 steam catapults. Each catapult is connected to 2 steam storage cylinders, which are linked by long pipes to pistons on the deck. When a plane is launched, the steam pressure is suddenly released, generating a huge force that propels the aircraft into the air. To prevent steam leaks, the pistons are equipped with elastic metal seals that close off the cylinder after passing through. Different wind speeds, Different models of aircraft and varying payload weights all require different settings. However, this is not a complicated task. It's simply a matter of adding and subtracting based on the data in the table. Once the settings are determined, the crew below the flight deck begins adjusting the steam pressure. For the F-18, the required steam pressure is 36.5 kilograms per square centimeter. After the final confirmation is made by the pilot, the rest is up to the catapult. Each catapult can accelerate a 35-ton aircraft to 240 kilometers per hour in just 2.5 seconds. This feeling of acceleration is something that can only be experienced on an aircraft carrier. Now, after takeoff, the next thing to consider is landing. Regarding arresting wires, early Nimitz-class carriers had 4 arresting wires, spaced 15 meters apart. Pilots typically aim for the 3rd arresting wire because it is the safest and most reliable option. The 2nd and 4th wires are acceptable, but using the 1st wire is the most dangerous, as it's too close to the edge of the deck and the aircraft is at risk of crashing into the stern. Of course, there are times when no arresting wire catches the aircraft, in which case the pilot must quickly apply full throttle and go around. Every pilot makes mistakes, and if they miss the wire, they will be subject to teasing from other pilots. You might hear your friends laughing at you when you fail. All your friends will laugh at you all day long. The arresting wire system might seem like just a few steel cables on the deck, but in reality, there is a complex system of pulleys, cylinders, pistons, ropes, and other mechanical parts beneath the deck. When the pilot hooks the arresting wire, the cable moves the pistons, which pushes hydraulic oil from pipes at the bottom to cylinders above. During this process, the hydraulic oil passes through a small hole that is only 1.2 centimeters wide. As the oil is forced through this small hole, the kinetic energy of the aircraft is absorbed, allowing the plane to stop smoothly on the deck. The size of the hole is not fixed and can be adjusted based on the weight of the aircraft. The smaller the hole, the greater the resistance, and the larger the hole, the less resistance there is. Simply put, the more arresting wires there are on the deck, the more facilities are required below, making the construction and maintenance costs higher. Additionally, the first arresting wire is usually not recommended for use. Therefore, the last 2 Nimitz-class carriers, the USS Reagan and USS Bush, as well as the subsequent Ford class, reduced the number of arresting wires to 3. It is worth mentioning that arresting wires are not 100% reliable, and sometimes they can break due to fatigue, preventing the aircraft from stopping. In such cases, the pilot's quick reaction determines whether the plane survives. A quick reaction may allow for a successful recovery, but if the pilot is slower, they may still manage to launch again. However, if the response is too slow, it may result in failure. Apart from the pilots, a broken arresting wire also poses significant dangers to the deck crew. Those who react quickly may escape unharmed, but slower ones could be directly swept away. This is likely to be very painful. Now, let's briefly discuss the daily life aboard a Nimitz-class aircraft carrier. The Nimitz-class is currently the most crewed vessel in the world, with a total of over 5,200 people, including the air wing. Feeding this many people is no easy task. The aircraft carrier has over 100 chefs who prepare 4 meals a day, totaling 18,000 servings of food, consuming 120,000 eggs, 15 tons of potatoes, and 11 tons of meat. Compared to the crew, the work of the chefs is not much easier. You know, we have to make sure everyone is fed. I have to cook for 5,000 people on board. It's very challenging, but I love cooking. The food variety is quite diverse, mainly featuring typical American favorites like hamburgers, pizza, sandwiches, steak, ice cream, and roasted chicken. Of course, if these dishes are too greasy for some, vegetarian meals are also available, focusing on healthier options. Officers have their own separate dining area with a more professional chef team that provides table service to meet their personalized needs. Besides the dining facilities, there is also a small supermarket where crew members can buy snacks. Compared to the prices ashore, the items here are cheaper and free from sales tax. The aircraft carrier also has a Starbucks, which is usually the most popular spot. Crew members often line up for coffee. Background noise on board. In addition to the rich food options, the Nimitz-Class offers a variety of entertainment activities. The U.S. Navy's recreational and team-building activities were largely popularized with the Nimitz-Class. When there are no missions, the hangar and flight deck turn into two massive recreational spaces. Crew members can host BBQ parties, hold eating contests, play football, or practice boxing. On the flight deck, there are opportunities to play basketball or golf, or even set up a big screen for movie nights. Notably, the aircraft carrier deck was used for a special event. In May 2001, the USS Stennis, a Nimitz-class carrier, hosted the global premiere of the movie Pearl Harbor, with over 2,000 participants at the premiere. Undoubtedly, it was the most expensive movie premiere ever. Recently, on November 11, 2022, the USS Lincoln, a Nimitz-class ship, hosted a college basketball game between Gonzaga University and Michigan State University on its deck. For the players, competing on an aircraft carrier must have been an unparalleled experience. After the game, many students may have been inspired to join the military. In terms of infrastructure, the Nimitz-class is like a small floating city, with all the necessary amenities, including a gym, barber shop, and hospital. There's even a small dental clinic for those who can't tolerate long periods of discomfort. Additionally, there's a library for the crew to study. Some Nimitz-class ships even offer educational courses so that crew members can earn college credits or certifications while at sea. As for accommodations, regular crew members sleep in 4-tier bunks, which are quite cramped, with less space than a train compartment. Interestingly, within the U.S. Navy, this area is known as the birthplace because it houses the maximum number of crew in the smallest space. Slightly better conditions include 3-tier or 2-tier bunks. To be honest, it's a challenge to complete a 6-month deployment in these conditions. Compared to regular crew members, officers enjoy better living conditions. Depending on their rank, officers are assigned different quarters. The captain has the most space, usually with 2 private bedrooms, a private bathroom, a living room, and a dining room. After all, a captain is usually at least a colonel, so it's only fair that they have better accommodations. Now, after all these details, we must remember that the aircraft carrier is still a weapon of war. No matter how impressive the specs or how rich the amenities are, only real combat situations can truly test a weapon's effectiveness. Speaking of combat, the Nimitz-class has undoubtedly gained the most operational experience of any aircraft carrier in service. Since the first Nimitz-class ship was commissioned, nearly all of the U.S. military's major operations have involved a Nimitz-class carrier. Here are some notable examples. In 1980, the USS Nimitz conducted Operation Eagle Claw, where 8 Sea Stallion helicopters flew from the carrier to Iran for a hostage rescue mission. Although the mission ended in failure, with only 1 helicopter returning, the fault was more with the U.S. military's plan than the carrier itself. In 1991, during Operation Desert Storm, the USS Roosevelt, Nimitz-class ship, conducted 4,200 sorties, more than any other carrier. In 2002, during the Afghanistan War, the USS Carl Vinson and USS Roosevelt participated in the campaign, with an average sortie rate of 90 to 100 per day. In 2003, during the Iraq War, the USS Lincoln and USS Truman took part, with an average sortie rate of 120 to 130 per day. Alright, that's all for this video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, share, and comment. Let me know what other aircraft carriers you'd like to learn about, and we'll see you in the next video.